Welcome to the Point Out Loud Women Trailblazers podcast series 6 of Through Her Lens at UWSP, brought to you by the UWSP Center of Women's Leadership. Here at UW-Stevens Point, we believe that meaningful change begins with students and leaders who are committed to shaping a more inclusive, innovative, and empowered campus.
This series highlights the voices of passionate arts leaders, students, advocates, leaders who are making an impact. From student organizations to workplace initiatives, these trailblazers are redefining how artists can lead.
As Frida Kahlo once said, at the end of the day, we can endure much more than we think we can. Today, we honor the students showing resilience and courage in every step they take.
We're so excited to have you join us as we talk about seeing through her lens.
Today, we're excited to welcome Erin Bagatta. Erin graduated from UW-Stevens Point in 2018 with a degree in Communication and Media Studies and a minor in Spanish. She's a creative professional based in Milwaukee, as well as a multidisciplinary artist exploring photography, illustration, brand development, and even filmmaking. On top of that, she's also a musician, singing, and playing synthesizer in the indie rock band Fellow Kinsman.
You're really going to enjoy this conversation. Kelsey and I talked to Erin about enjoying the process, creating because it is just fun. Some of my favorite things she said today is, I'm not one thing, and it's okay to be undecided.
Welcome, Erin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm fantastic.
Yeah, you should see Erin's big smile. I know you're listening to this on audio, but you definitely want to go look at her picture and you want to picture that face just smiling ear to ear. It's great to see you.
Alrighty, we would love to start by having you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your backstory.
So I graduated from UWSP in December of 2018 with a degree in communications with an emphasis in media studies and a minor in Spanish. And after attending Stevens Point, my first job out of school was working for Radio Milwaukee. That's 88.9 on the FM dial in Milwaukee. And that is Milwaukee's adult alternative station. We call it a AAA station. It is a public media station, which means that the station relies on support from members or donors to stay afloat and to produce their programming. And I worked there as originally their marketing coordinator for a few years, and then I was promoted to creative marketing manager. So I was there for about 4.5 years. And then I took a little break from public media, and I did some academic advising at Concordia University. And then I ended up right back in public media where I am today, which is at WUWM 89.7, Milwaukee's NPR. And I'm doing very similar work that I did at Radio Milwaukee. So I'm the creative manager there, and I do a lot of photography, graphic design, marketing, but I also do a lot of community engagement. So I find ways where we can connect with listeners, whether that's in person, in the community, or online. And I find ways to make meaningful connections with people and to make sure that our programming is accessible to everyone, essentially. And outside of work, I'm very much involved in the music scene. I'm in a band. I play keys and I sing. It's called Fellow Kinsman. And I also am just always pursuing a creative project of some sort. I really enjoy quilting at the moment. And I say at the moment because it fluctuates depending on how I feel or what the season is. But I felt, I sew, I do freelance graphic design and photography. And yeah, a lot of it is just because I really enjoy doing it. And it's not necessarily because I'm trying to make money or trying to be famous. I just really love art in all of its capacities.
Yeah, I love that. When Kelsey and I were, reading through and talking through your bio, Erin, we noticed that. We noticed how much you do. And so you certainly have a career. And I loved hearing you talk about your career in radio, and you're so authoritative. I wish you're whipping out terms and, classes of station. I'm like, wow. I was impressed with what I was hearing. But
thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm also even more impressed with, all these artistic attractions you have or artistic experiments you run. And so I'm thinking about other people like you who are, maybe they're at UWSP now, or they've recently left UWSP, and they're trying to bring together their creativity with a career. What advice do you have for them?
That's a great question. And I love that you phrased it as artistic experiments, because I think that's really what it is, or at least that's where it all started for me. And I think that's key. I think, first of all, showing up as your authentic self is huge. I'd like to say to people who are pursuing a college degree or thinking about their career that they don't have to change who they are to fit a certain career. I think they should look at it through a lens of, what are my talents? What are my interests? What is my unique perspective? And how can I use those skills to, better serve an organization or, I guess, the world at large? And the way that I found my, I guess, career route is just through experimenting. I was involved on campus with obviously the media studies cohort, but also WUWSP 90 FM. I worked for Centertainment Productions, and I took classes in photography, art history, music theory, and I did that not because it was a requirement of my major necessarily, but because those interest me, and I really wanted to learn more about those avenues. So I would suggest to anyone who is maybe undecided about what career they want to pursue, or if they have so many different interests and they don't know how to just focus their interests, that's okay. And to just immerse yourself in different communities that support you. I think the support of peers and other like-minded individuals will help guide you in what it is you want to pursue outside of school. And even if your passion or one of your passions is your career, that doesn't mean your other hobbies have to die or diminish just because your career maybe isn't, your most favorite thing to do, but it does feature aspects of things that you're interested in and knowledgeable about. You can always pursue your hobbies outside of your career, and that could also lead to just more opportunities and, I guess, you feeling fulfilled.
I love that. That's great advice.
That's awesome. That makes me so happy when you say all those different things.
No.
Yeah. I do want to say though, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I think inherently, I'm a pretty restless person, which is why I have so many interests. I'm curious, I'm restless, and you do have to organize yourself so that you don't get burnt out or distracted. So sometimes you have to prioritize your hobbies as well, which can be hard. But it's possible to just kind of dabble in anything and everything.
Yeah, my spirit really loves your dabbler. And I wrote down when you were talking, because this is such good advice for all of us, especially when we're dealing with careers, right? And what mix of things in my life contributes towards my maximum happiness. I wrote down, and this is what I heard you say, is I am not one thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes I find myself almost wishing that I was one thing, but I don't truly believe that, because that's not who I am. I can't be defined by one thing. And I think it's hard when you're in college or even when you're in high school and you're thinking about college, because you're young and you have to choose what it is you want to major in. And that's a big decision to make when you're 18, 20, 22, whenever you decide to pursue college. But know that that's not the end all be all.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So Kelsey wants to talk about hope.
Yeah. So when you think about women and our role in society nowadays, what gives you the most hope, especially when you wear a bunch of different hats in your career or just in your life in general?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I also think it's an important question to be asking right now, because I think in general, this is historically, government, attitudes, society, there's ebbs and flows of feelings and, just there's a lot going on in the world, and sometimes it's really hard to have hope. And sometimes you have to actively seek it, and it's possible and it's important. But I think for me, I'm really delighted to see women breaking barriers and challenging gender stereotypes. Women aren't a monolith. Women aren't just one thing. There's so many things. And it's encouraged to see an increase in people speaking out on that, and an increase in representation of different types of women across all industries. I also think it's encouraging that children are growing up now in an environment where gender stereotypes and gender bias are more critically discussed and also defied in certain ways. I know that, education, media, the world at large, I'd like to say is more gender inclusive and reflects diversity in ways that just weren't the case when I was younger. I think there's a lot of work we still can do, but that also gives me hope that we are making progress and we are, fighting for equity and amongst many other things.
Yeah, I love that. Audience, you probably can hear it in our voices, but Erin is doing such a good job of trying to be wise in how she responds to this comment, right? And all of us got a little somber when she's talking about what's going on in society right now. And, I just heard very deeply the words that you used, Erin, about actively seeking hope. That's been a big deal for me. And that's what this podcast is about. I mean, that's why Mac is here and Kelsey is here. You're here to give us hope today. and it's, look at you smiling, like it's not too big of a job for you. You've already started in just a few minutes of conversation.
Yeah, definitely. It made me feel really powerful saying all those different words. It made me feel like I could find hope in today's world as well.
Oh, I'm so glad. I mean, likewise, you just reflecting on that and sharing your thoughts, that makes me feel great. And I think that also gives me hope, like this reciprocation that we're having, because this is such a small, easy way to support each other. And it really costs us nothing. And it's genuine. And this alone, like, I feel recharged from it. Yes. And it's like, this is so small, but like, look at the impact that it's having.
Exactly. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So for me, when I hear actively seek hope, it's exactly what you've been talking about here. What are we working towards versus what are we working against? So I want you to picture, Erin, if you would, sure. young women who are in classes here, who are on campus, young women who you're seeing in your workplace, young women walking down the street, wherever you're seeing them. How do you hope to set an example for those young women who may want to follow in your footsteps?
That's a great question. I'd like to preface my answer by saying that it's not easy to be your genuine self. And a lot of the times I think we don't even know what our authentic self really is because we're constantly shape-shifting, and that's not a bad thing. But I hope that, young women feel empowered to advocate for themselves when they need to. That's something that I am getting better and better and better at as I get older, which is encouraging. But I would say, don't be afraid to speak out. If you have an idea, it matters, it's valuable, and your ideas and your feelings, it's all valid. And I've been in situations where that's not directly reflected. And it's taught me, one, patience. It's taught me resilience. But it's also enabled me with the ability to stand up for myself and to take initiative when I need to. And in my workplace alone, I recognize that I do have, I'm good at communicating, and now I am good at advocating for myself, but I see other women who are maybe struggling with that, and I try to help them. I don't try to speak for them necessarily, but I try to uplift them in what I say to them and then how I communicate with my coworkers as well.
So, boy, we've gone deep today. I am going back to what you were talking about when you were talking about how unique you are, right? And all the different interests, compelling interests you have. And you said you have to select, right? You dream, you select, you prioritize. And, you're talking about this external advocacy, but I bet you've also grown as a really healthy internal advocate. Like how you talk to yourself, how you encourage yourself, how say you can do all that, but you've got to do it in, you can only do 3 at a time or something.
Right. I mean, I talk to myself all the time. And one thing that this is reminding me of is, with all these projects that I have going on, I used to feel really anxious or I don't want to say unworthy, but, when I was little, I was creating things and pursuing these artistic interests because it was just fun. And then you get a little bit older and, there's conversations about how can you monetize this? How can you make this talent profitable? Or how can you turn it into a career? And I'm very grateful that I've been able to build a career off of my interests. But I also think you don't always need a platform, you just need a passion. And if it fills your cup, that's good enough. I used to, I've entered film contests and I've gotten rejection letters, or I've applied to jobs and I don't hear back. And I spend hours on a quilt and I think, well, I'm not entering it into a show, so what's the value in it? And the value is just the process. The value is that you like doing this and just think of what it provides you, a sense of confidence, accomplishment, pride. And I think that's worth that's worth more than being accepted into a film showcase or whatever it is you can think of, or landing your dream job. It's it's just something you like to do, and that's so important.
We think about careers on campus so much because we are a career. We are part of the Century School of Business and Economics, and we say we're a career-ready program. And I know all over campus people are thinking about careers, but I loved your word fun and how you've worked to continue to unleash fun in your life.
That brings me to my next question with unleashing and everything. What's one thing you'd like to ask everyone listening to this podcast to further unleash women?
At a very basic level, support the women in your life. I know we spoke earlier about how we were just supporting each other through this conversation. Show appreciation for the women in your life. Listen to them, give them credit where credit is due, encourage them, advocate, especially when it comes to equity, respect, inclusivity. I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other. Just through having small conversations. I would say candid conversations with women that you look up to in your life, and ask them about their lived experience. I think there's a lot that we can gain from other generations, whether you're speaking to someone younger than you or you're speaking to someone older than you. I think opening up a dialogue is incredibly important because you're gaining different perspectives, and just think of what those insights can do to help this current moment and then propel us into the future as well.
I've started talking to men about this more too, because I want men to know what my experiences are like how I experience the room responding to them versus responding to me. So I speak up for women, just like you said, but it all comes back to me. I also am speaking up to men, right? Not just speaking up, but doing that in private one-on-one conversations. And I'll never forget when I did this with the boss and I explained what was happening. It actually wasn't with him, but it was with some other groups of people, and that we were co-leading in, and I told him what I experienced, and then he watched it happen, and he's like, right, he never would have noticed it if I hadn't talked about it, but then he came back and said, whoa, that really does happen, and so I think building allies is also, there's a writer, I'm missing his name right now, but he says that it's Paulo Freire. He's a really famous for his notions about how the oppressed actually change the world. And he says that only the oppressed can lead the change because they're having the experience of it and they can reflect it back to the larger world.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that you mentioned, I know I started my response with, speak to the women in your life, which I think is super important. But this is a conversation and an issue that concerns everybody. Like you said, it's not just women. We need to involve everybody.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree in that. I just think everybody should be equal. Everybody should have the same opportunity in that too.
Yeah. So I want you to think about your time here on UWSP. And I have to say, I've been here 14 years, so I'm asking this question from a really hopeful place, but I'm also not asking it to force you into an answer, okay? I just want to be straight about that. But when you think about your time that you were, in classrooms or at events or walking around campus. Can you talk a little bit about how UWSP might have helped you become this, brilliant, confident woman that we're talking to today?
Yeah, for sure. Genuinely, I am very excited to answer this question.
Great.
Because I do think very highly of UWSP. And it's interesting because when I graduated high school and it came time to decide my major and where I wanted to go to school, in classic Erin fashion, which I'm just very undecided about a lot of things, I was like, I don't know. I have no clue where I want to go, what I want to do. So my mom suggested communications because it's a very broad major that covers the scope of my interests. And I thought, yeah, you're right. That sounds good. Sign me up for that. But when it came time to deciding on a campus, I toured several campuses and I chose UWSP for two reasons. One reason being the size. It wasn't a huge school. It wasn't a small school. I loved the campus. I loved my conversations with those who I had met on campus that day. But also, I grew up camping a little north of Stevens Point. And literally, that was a huge deciding factor. It was just, hey, I'm comfortable here.
Yes.
I camped here for 10 years. I like the area, sure. But being on campus and being a student at UWSP, it evolved into so much more. And I think that there's such a rich, interconnected community on campus, but also Stevens Point in general. And all of my professors were just quality professors. They were insightful, they were kind, they were approachable, and I felt seen on campus, in my classes, with my friends, in all of the clubs that I was in, or extracurriculars. I felt known and seen, and there was that level of just, this, it was personal. My education felt personal because of these relationships that I had developed. And I don't think I would have received that at another school. I think I lucked out with Stevens Point because, I was skeptical and confused in the beginning, and by the time I graduated, I was a totally different person. I was empowered, and my cousin ended up going to Stevens Point. I don't know if it was because I recommended it, but I definitely did. But I think it's just a great place to grow. And the biggest thing is the quality of professors and classes, and then just the level of comfort that you feel.
I love that.
Yeah.
Kelsey and I would both, we have long, wonderful growth stories to tell, as well as, Kelsey's here as a double alum. So she's graduated undergrad and is now in our MBA.
Yeah. So I definitely connect with you when you say that just Stevens Point is so beautiful. It's so, I don't want to say simple, but it feels so simple in my heart because I could have gone to a really big school, but it just felt like Stevens Point was just right for me, knowing that I was going to excel. I was going to see myself walking across the stage, grabbing that diploma in big smiles.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So audience,
I can't even describe it.
I love it. I was going to try, right? So audience, you can't see us, but we are all beaming right now. It's interesting how a university can be at the center of our growth in so many directions at once, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's where I also like found myself, like who I was as a person and what I kind of wanted to do in life as well.
Mm-hmm. And this is where I came to experiment with a new direction in my life, because I was a business professional and thought, I really want to give this teaching thing a shot because I'll get to invest in people for a longer period of time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. So I'm going to bring you back to this wonderful quote that Kelsey found because she loves, and can you say Frida's last name for me? Because I feel like I always get it wrong.
Kahlo.
Frida Kahlo. And she brought this great quote from Frida. So I'm going to read it to you. And then I'm just curious, this will be a great end note, Erin. If you just tell us how you might read this or hear this, how it might be descriptive of your own journey as an artistic leader. Frida Kahlo once said, "At the end of the day, we can endure much more than we think we can."
That speaks on just our capability to be resilient, but also to succeed in many different avenues. I think, at least personally, I have these doubts sometimes that I feel limited, I think I can do this one thing, and then that vision or that goal is clouded by doubts that come in, concerns. But I think ultimately, you can pursue your passions, you can have large goals, and it might take time to get there, but you're capable of it. You're capable of more than you know you are. And I think in order to experience that firsthand, there's a lot of trial and error, but resilience is key. And ultimately, if you're dedicated to something, you can make it happen.
I think that's a great phrase to end our podcast on. I got so many great phrases from Erin today, but this whole piece that she just said about you can make it happen. And so Erin and Kelsey and Mac at the technical controls, we all say to you as we end this wonderful conversation that we believe in you and we know you can make it happen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's really great. I'm just so what a beautiful conversation. I kind of feel like I want to cry.
Thank you.
Cry a little bit.
Me too.
Oh my God. I wish I could be there in person.
Yeah, so do we.
You are both so lovely and so calming to talk to. I think the reason why I'm able to I don't know, spew out everything is because it's very clear that you were just dedicated to this and compassionate and just you guys did a phenomenal job. And I work in the realm of podcasting and interviews, so you guys nailed it. Yay. Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on our 6th series where we focused on seeing through her lens at UWSP. We hope these stories inspire you to step up, speak out, and make a difference in your own communities.
Maya Angelou once said, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." Let's carry that same kind of resilience with us into everything we do.
Be sure to stay tuned for our next series where we will continue to amplify the voices of those creating meaningful impact.
Until then, trust your lens and keep pushing forward, advocating and driving change.